L'chayra Shaila, the Shvatim obviously lower than the Ovis. Yet, paradoxically, the avoid of the Ovis is bequeathed to every Jew, and the avoid of the Shvatim, he says, it can be a Yid that has none of their avoid, but they're a lower level. So you start to explain that from another perspective, as we'll see, they are higher even. So he began the whole arichas that what's the avodah of the Daled Partsufim of the Merkava, the four faces of the Merkava, Pnei Arya to the right, Pnei Shoy to the left, and Pnei Nesha, the eagle in the middle. This is the avodah of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But then there's Pnei Adam. And all of the faces have the Pnei Adam. And that is the Shvatim. And the Adam, the Pnei Adam of the Partsufim, so this Pnei Adam is rooted, he says, in the Adam Sha'ala Kisei, which is, there's again the Merkava, and these four wheels, as it were, four faces of the Merkava. That's the actual Merkava. Then there's the Kisei, and then there's the Adam Sha'ala Kisei. In general, that's Yitzira B'ri Atzilus. So, paradoxically, Dafke, the Shvatim embody the Adam face of the Merkava, which is a reflection of the Adam Ha'elyon. This needs to be understood because they're Allah Madrege. He already told us that it's the union of Torah, that the Ovis are Ava and Yira and Rachamim and Kedlakam and Sifhei. The union of Shvatim is Torah, which is lower but higher. Comes down lower but is rooted higher. So the whole Arichas Habir that began over here in explaining the three Avas. And the Dafke B'chol Ma'itcha is Oisin the Tzorah Shlamaka. And explained the three Avas. B'chol Avavcha is B'shnei Yitzarecha. Now he said at the end, that was Avodah of Yitzchak. It came out. That's, just to be sure again. It's the fire of Yitzchak that transforms the fire of the Nefesh HaBahamis. And he added a word, what's the nature of this love? Sheyore liyos nifred. That he's afraid to be separated. After the Nefesh HaBahamis understands that the emes is a likus, and moreover, this is his source, it's his own source, he comes from the Shmari Yefanim. Elam hatoyu, Elam lachem Hashem alcha beretzedem, lifnei melach melech l'bnei Yisrael. Esav, the older son, this is all his source, a very lofty source. So he wants to be connected, and he's afraid to be disconnected. So it's a selfish love. I don't want to be disconnected. In simple language, comes to realize I don't want a life that's meaningless. And that ends up empty. So that is B'chol Levavcha, and that transformation is the Ishpe Eish of Kedusha of Pachad Yitzchak. Again, what's the nature of this fear? It's Shiyore Liyos Nifred. That transforms the foreign, misdirected loves and passion of the Nefesh HaBahamis. They should be now only to Hashem. B'chol Nafshecha, that's Avraham, and that's the Avodah of the Nefesh HaLikis itself. Right, Nefesh HaBahamis is no longer in the way, an obstacle, and this allows the Neshama to express her love. Amnom, let's we're up to the second line of the page, correct? Yeah? Your father's not here? He's okay. Right. Amnom beis avos Elohim b'Hagbola. The first two loves we just described are limited. The given Shabbat Yedei HaYizbonenus. It's arrived at through appreciation. understanding, therefore they're obviously limited to the level and depth of the appreciation. So then is the third with all your might, with all your exceedingness. This is a boundless love that's not bound by the mind and the heart at all. And the connection to Yaakov and Rachmanis is as follows. And this comes as a result of arousing compassion on the Shmosei, on his neshama, Nefesh it's Rachmanis and Nefesh Elikis. The second love was the love of the Nefesh Elikis. But this is something completely different. It's Rachmanis and the Nefesh Elikis, and including its love that it has for the Eibishter, as it is Lamata in Aguf. Like you don't even know where you come from. That descended, is paraphrasing Gemara, from a lofty roof to a deep pit. There is a very beautiful medrash. I've said this many times. I don't know if I said it to you guys, but it's a medrash worth knowing. So it's a medrash is a moshel, and the moshel is that Bekitzer, the king, has an only daughter. Obviously, it's the Eibishter and the Shamas Yisrael. So the Eibishter decides she's getting older, and there is no suitor worthy of her hand. But there has to be a hemshech to the monarchy. So they decide, the king, that the next suitor that seeks her hand, Zehu. You know the story or not? You've heard me say it many times, but this isn't a good here, so we'll say Bekitzer, for those who didn't hear it. And she's going to marry him. So who comes along? A peasant. Garnished. This was the deal. This was the commitment. So she marries him. He's a wealthy fellow. He's a wealthy peasant. And he realizes that his wife isn't happy. Soon after the marriage, he can't believe that he's marrying the princess, the beautiful princess, but she's not happy. So why is a person not happy? Obviously because they're hungry. That must be the reason. So the next morning he piles the table high with tomatoes and potatoes and bread. My love, it's all for you. And she's polite and pokes at it. But after all, he realizes no change. No, it's not the food and drink. What could it be? Your clothes. Told you he was wealthy. So he goes to Holtz Renfrew and he buys these exquisite gowns. The next morning she comes to breakfast dressed in this sequined, expensive, gorgeous gown. He's looking to see if there's a glimmer of happiness, hoping so much that there will be, and no change. No, so it's not the food, not the clothing. What could it be? Why is a person not happy? I told you had money, yeah? So it must be the house. So he completely renovates the home and the garden, and it's the envy of the entire country. And in fact, they come from town and countries at the magazine to take pictures of this gorgeous home and its garden, and he takes her for a tour, and he explains what he did, and it's all for you, and she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and he realizes there's no spark in her eyes, this is not touching her. And then he does the extraordinary. After all of this, he asks her, he said, I don't understand. He says, you have food you're not going to eat, clothes you won't wear, a home that's the envy of most of the world, and you're still not happy. I don't understand. So she looks at him and she says, my dear husband, she begins to describe life in the palace. You know where I come from. She describes the music, the art, the culture. She talks, he listens, doesn't understand, and the curtain falls. That's the end of the story of the Medrash. So the story of the Medrash is the story of the Neshama. You feel this drive, this emptiness, something missing in my life. And well, what is it? It's food, my weight. So we go all kinds of diets and what have you. And then after it's all done, that still small voice refused to be silent. So it's not my weight and it's not the exercise. It's my look. It's my look. As we thumb through the magazines, he looks happy, or she, if I look like him. So you go into, after the whole clothing trip, nothing changes. So what's the problem? It's where I live. It's my house. It's my job. It's the country. So we move, change jobs, change countries, change houses, renovate, and nothing changes. So then we figure there's something wrong with us. So the Medrash says there's nothing wrong with you. The problem is that you're trying to satisfy the neshama, the princess, via the peasants, in the peasant's world. And that's what happens in marriage. You fuse, the neshama fuses with the goof. So we think it's a goof thing, but it's not. It's really this ache and this, I'm not happy. And the search is not for more things. It's the neshama that's searching for the Eibishter. And we're misinterpreting this emptiness, and that we can never satisfy it until we understand. That's the Rahmanas here. That's the Rahmanas on the neshama, that the neshama has come down. And so with all of its generated loves that it has in the goof, objectively, you know where she comes from, where I come from. So this is a ava that's built in Mub. Back in the text, Al Yidei Yisayres Rachmim Rabbi Mal Nishmosai, he's being me'oire, tremendous the compassion on his own neshama sheyodem, his nislapshim yigeram al bir miktad, that descended from the loftiest heights to the deepest pit. Vachagam avidose be'ava rabba, eine kediboy, so this great love of b'chol nafshechem. Vasidus, tethered to the body, filtered through the body's experience. It's not even remotely close to what a neshama, how the neshama experiences a likus. So this engenders the gewalt. But yidei yisoyres rachmim rabim, and through arousing the great rachmanas of the Eibishter on, it's both him, on himself, as it were, and God. Nasa yitziyah me'akbola, this is b'chol ma'itcha, then it's an ava that's completely beyond limits. Because the whole ava is born from the gewalt of the Hagbola, of being in the guf and ilam haz. We clear? Yeah. Yes. Zeh midas Yaakov b'yisoyres rachmim rabim, and that's the union of Yaakov rachmim rabim b'chinas pnei nesha. That's the eagle, whose midas rachmanis sheidei zeh amshach b'chinas bli gvul. And Dafka by Yaakov, the pasuk says that he inherits the pasuk there in Yeshaya, Nachal Belim Mitzorim, or familiar with that Gemara. That his inheritance, unlike the others, Yitzchak and Yaakov, is an inheritance that is limits. His is Bligvu. Possibly that's the eagle that soars the highest. And Akoponim. Let's go further. Dalet. So continuing, Neged Gimel Madreges Avish and Merkava. So corresponding to the three levels of the Avis, which are the Merkava, Pnei Shur, Pnei Arya, Pnei Nesher, Shem Gimel Avis, was explained now that these are the three loves of B'chol Avavcha, that's Yitzchak, B'chol Nafshcha, that's Avraham. B'chol Ha'etcha, the Rachmanis, that's the Ava of, the Bligvul Ava of Yaakov. So corresponding to this, the Malachim praise and they say to the Eibishter, Kodesh, 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 Havai Tzvakes. As we learned from the Gemara that the Malachim don't begin their praises till Yidden do. So the Malachim are feeding off and echoing the Avodah of Yidden. So they say Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh 3 times, reflecting the 3 levels of Ava V'Yid. Now, to explain what they're saying and how that reflects these 3 loves. And the Indian is the Hine Kodesh Eloshen Avdallah. The word Kodesh means removed. So in other words, it's a level that's beyond the world, beyond creation. Not so. On the one hand, it's a transcendent level, but it's not Kodesh, it's Kodesh. And Kodesh with the Vav, Hameir al Hamshacha, the letter Vav conveys Hamshacha. Anybody? How does a letter Vav convey Hamshacha, drawing down? Its shape. What else? When you say its shape, mind you, what do you mean? That it comes down. It's shaped like a hook. In fact, a hook is a Vav. The Vavim in the Mishkan, the hooks. What's the idea of a hook? To connect one thing with another. Hamshacha. And finally, if you put a Vav in front of a word, what is it? And. It means and, connection. Aside from the Gematria, the 6 midas, now the Avshe, so Kodesh has the Vav, Davshe in the Elakav Dak, even though it's only a thin line. So how much is being drawn, he's saying? But it still is Hamshacha. What is the Vav in the Kodesh? We're talking about a level that is transcendent, but is drawn down to the recipient. And how was he receiving it? In a very contracted way. That's the Izdak, the thin letter of the letter Vav. Therefore, even after the revelation of the upper to the lower, since it's through a profound tzimtzum, nisher ikit. Why? Because it's a lofty level that's being drawn. It can only come to the recipient dramatically and drastically compromised. So therefore, nisher ikit inyan b'pchinas makif ala makabel. The makabel receives only this glimmer, the faintest glimmer of the inyan. The main gilui remains beyond the senses, the kelim of the makabel, and removed from him. So that's the general definition of the word Kodesh. Now they say it 3 times. We're clear? Before we go further, yeah? So it's repeated 3 times, not the same thing 3 times, but it's 3 different dargis and 3 different tzimtzumim. Showing in Gimel Pamim Kodesh, reflected in the 3 Kodesh that the Malachim say. So to understand this, he invokes a moshel. Okay, let's try and understand the Begashmis. I don't fully, but this is the way it is. This is the way it is. So let's see. It's not a moshel novel to this, new to this Maimon, but this is a classic moshel Chassidus. So understand this moshel down here. Shkolim is galus oisis machshava. Before a person can think about something, a desire that he has in thought, in an organized thought in his mind, it doesn't come in a vacuum, the thoughts. There's first the arousal of the desire in the heart. It's called the desire of the heart. It's a Lashon HaZohar. So let's what's the word? Let us follow the route here, the process. So it begins with a non-articulated raw desire of the heart. And from there it comes to the brain, where the brain entertains the desire. How? By thinking. With letters of thought, which are not like the same as letters of speech, they're much more ethereal, but nonetheless there's thought. There's a kind of language. He's thinking about, and in Machshava there's levels and levels of Isis of Machshava as they get more and more concrete. But overall, so what's happening there, he's thinking, with this that he desires in his heart, can move a Tanya explains in Tanya Perek Chof. Let's see, so what's happening? What this means, I don't know exactly, but it's drawn from the inner breath of the heart. What this means, he's talking about Gashmis. But that's the way it works. It starts in the heart, and it's the Hevel Alev, the Pnimius of the Hevel, the inner of the hevel alev of this. Hevel is a vapor also of the heart. And from there it becomes, lo'ises semachshava, it ascends, contracts, and becomes then expressed in letters of thought. Shu'inyan, what are the letters of thought? This is Lashon Hazoya, kol pnimo d'lo yishtama, in a voice that is not heard. Now that's bedugma, similar to, which we'll revisit, we'll see in a moment, further down the road in the whole process, kol hadibur, actual speech, shenimshech mechitzoni is hevel alev, that comes from the external level of the heart, but that's jumping ahead. It's the same transition. And now we're talking the first transition, just to get the language, the geography straight. So the geography of the goof we're talking, from the hevel alev, just get these words straight, from the hevel, pnimius hevel alev, that then becomes, transmutes and morphs into, through a tzimtzum, as it'll say, into what? Oises hamachshav. Yeah, let's get that clear. Now let's go further. However, we didn't say the word tzimtzum yet. Now it's introducing that. To go from the inarticulated desire, the pure desire of the heart, that should then translate in organized thoughts to some degree in the brain. That doesn't happen directly. It's got to be through profound contraction of that otherwise pure desire. Why? The desire in the heart relative to the structured thoughts of the mind, it's relatively speaking, it's a spiritual boundless koyach, desire, even though it's a desire for something specific, but it's a desire. The desire itself is a koyach ruchni bilti mugbul. It itself cannot be contained in thoughts. It transcends thoughts and language and description of any kind. Pure desire. How does it get there? He wants to implement it, so you have to go through the process before it's going to actually be carried out. So therefore, there has to be a tzimtzum. That's the first kodesh, the first vov. Yeah, it was somewhat clear. We got yeah. And after the tzimtzum of the desire of the heart, that now the desire is able to be expressed in the letters of thought, which was a result of tzimtzum number one. Now yeshli tzimtzum abeis. Again, we're all going towards what? The implementation physically of the object of the desire. So there's got to be now another tzimtzum. What's that? The starting point now is already stage 2, is the letters of thought. But now we've got to go from where to there, from there to where? We've got to go lavai lichitzonius alev. Before we're talking about the pnimius hevel alev. Now we're talking about the external level of the heart. That's the fuel of actual speech. Okay, so geographically, as it were, the hevel pnimius alev is the market of oises hamachshava. The hevel of the chitzonius alev, the external level of the heart, this is all gashmius, is the source of the fuel of oises hadibur. Shari, as he elaborates, Shari, Masha.
You said all gashmius.
I can't explain it.
You mean psychological, right?
No, physiological. Yeah, the heart pumping the blood. Yeah, it's physiological. No indication that he means it's only. I guess emotional as well, but manifested physically. There's a physical in the brain. The mokar hamidus is in the heart. Begashmius. I don't know what any of this means really. Begashmius, because everything is in the brain. Emotions are entertained in the brain as well. What does it mean? That the main primary place of the nefesh habamis is in the heart. I don't know the answer to this begashmis, but it does mean begashmis. But as you say, also psychological. Relative. relative. We're talking about emotion, not a body. A body has no emotions. Physical heart has no emotions. But there, it's in the heart. In the heart is this koyach ruchni, but it's located physically in the heart, which produces a pnimis hevel and chitzonius hevel. Now, maybe it doesn't begashmi at all, but the language of Chassidus everywhere is Parshas begashmi. Oilel amayach, the imagery of ascending in the locations, mind, heart. So science will catch up and understand this. Just derech hagav, this is a little bit controversial, but a really huge subject. The way the Alter Rebbe explains, it's not he's not the original, but in Perek Beis in Tanya, the way a child is born, where the tippa comes from the Mayach Halev, from the Machshava and the Mayach, and then it travels down the spine, literally it ends up being the physical tippa. That's how explains it there in Tanya. Again, that Rebbe is not the origin, it's in the early Mukabalim. I just tell you, there are those that explain Tanya, very great teachers, and they say in light of scientific, a contemporary understanding, it doesn't work this way at all. But the Ruchnis, it still does. Now, I'm left. The whole point is the Ruchnis is a reflection of the Gashmi. So I'm just saying there are those that say there's justification for this. That's what Chazal gave, explained things, then it comes out scientifically. It's not so. It's not epicurus to say that, okay, so they were explaining it based on the understanding of the time. There are others that hold otherwise, that it remains the way it is. So science one day will understand it differently. I can tell you that the Tanya, what's his name, Tanya, this new popular Tanya, what's his name, Miller, he says outright that it's not Begashmi, it's been rejected. But we're continuing to explain his Beruchnis. This is not epicurus at all. There is in the Shonim, there is such a, it's valid. There's a valid Torah view. The Rebbe addresses this in the h'tשכ. It's the whole subject. The famous sikh in the h'tשכ is on this. The whole understanding of life of the four elements, this is Aristotelian. It goes way back. It's not the current understanding of physics.
You say this
You say this, yeah. Although science has gone just much deeper, it doesn't really say that these things, there are elements, but it's just not the core. I'm no experts, I shouldn't. It's a whole subject. It's a whole subject. On the other hand, we see that science is discovering things that are stated in Torah which were completely perplexing, and are now seeing it in the latest cutting-edge science. These wonderful books produced by the Koren publishing house in particular. It's very academic. You know, all the authors are PhDs and smicha. They've been gewaltig Talmidei Chachamim, these guys. So their stuff is very interesting. Their discoveries. I read the essays, I don't understand them because they're very scientific. Akol ponim. Let's finish the sentence. So after the tzimtzum abeis now, so now there's a second tzimtzum v'in, tzimtzum oisis ha'machshava. So now we've got to go from where? Stage 2, from the oisis ha'machshava. Lovei lechitzonius hevel halev. Kind of we're going down. You know, if we're talking physical, we're going down to the external vapor or energy of the heart. We're going to go to actual speech. What a person thinks, he speaks. In other words, he's saying the speech doesn't come in a vacuum, it comes from thought. Did I say that? What a person thinks, he speaks, yeah? Now, if you're speaking already, what has happened? If you're already getting to the stage of actual speech, that's a big descent of the Oisis HaMachshava. This is, as I mentioned before, there's levels of Machshava. So it's not the machshava that is engendered by the pnimius hevel alev, but this is already the machshava that's already become more concrete, and it's already drawing from the hitzonius hevel alev al yedei akone through the windpipe. They go definitely gashmius. It's through the trachea. Well, for sure, to speak, you need breath. So it's the lungs, it's the heart. Obviously, the heart is what's pumping all of this. So it's not so whatever. But so that's the second symptom. So the second symptom is to get to the stage of what? To be able to speak, not the actual speech. It's the machshava that precedes the actual dibur. That's what we're talking about. We're still in the world of machshava, but it's the machshava. It's descended to now instantaneously give rise to the actual speech, and that needs the third v'tzimtzum agimel. V'tzimtzum agimel man shenimshach mechitzon yisalev kol hadibur agashmi. They're going from a kol delay ishtama, a voice that's not heard, a nikra kol ishtama that is heard. Shimurkev, this physical speech is comprised b'pchinas eish mayim rocha gashmim, physical fire and water and ruach, but not offer. Okay, whatever the explanation is. I mean, speech is tangible. You can record it. So it has these ruchnis, the elements of eish and mayim and ruach. 39, see the Zohar. Hanimshach, and where do these physical properties come from? Of speech, they're tangible. Hanimshach, mepchinas eish mayim ruach, of ruchnim shebechitzenius hevel alev. So in summary, getting the geography from what you just said, the eish mayim ruach of the chitzenius alev. So help me. Let's repeat the three tzimtzumim. Begashmis, this is all supposed to be a mashal. Help us understand the kodesh of the malachim, the three tzimtzumim. No, so I'm putting it out there. Help me. Let's go. What's the first tzimtzum? We're going from where to where? From the Rosa de Liba. That's it too. It's too broad. We're talking about Oises and Machshove. Give me Machshove. We're going from the Rosa de Liba to what? To Machshove. And how does that happen? Which part of the heart produces this? The Machshove. Hevel Pnimius Alev. Tzimtzum number 1. Good. Tzimtzum number 2. We're going from Machshove to what? First time we were going from there. It's a bit tricky. But use the word Machshove. We want to get to the actual dibur. So you told me we got from Rusa the dibur to Machshove. Now where are we going from Machshove? Straight to dibur? No. We're getting to the stage of Machshove that will then produce the dibur, because you can't speak without the final thought before. That's a very contracted thought. That's the second tzimtzum. And that draws on what? The chitzonius hevel alev. First was the pnimius hevel alev. This is chitzonius hevel alev, and it's through the corner, it's through the trachea, that the oises machshava descend to the pre-speech stage, and then there is the third symptom. And what's that? To go to the dibur gashmi.
We're talking physical?
Yeah, again, this is physical.
This is saying spiritual.
Physical. There's Aish. Well, it's spiritual in that it's the nefesh. It's the nefesh aruchni. So it's spiritual, we're talking nefesh. But again, it's the nefesh that's invested in this gashmisdika place, that it's bound to that place. But it is a koyach ruchni that then gives right ruchni, relative ruchni. We're not talking elikis. We're talking, energy, physical, the energy that animates the person. I mean, it's measurable with physical instruments. It's a koyach ruchni, but then produces the physical speech, eish, which is made up of the eish mayim, ruchni gashmi, also very ethereal compared to physical action. Okay, so let's make it with broad brush strokes so we don't get lost. The three tzimtzumim. Tzimtzum 1 is from Rusa delivered to Machshava. Tzimtzum 2 is from Machshava to the Machshava just before Dibur. Tzimtzum 3 is to the actual physical Dibur. Yeah.
Machshava just before Dibur is the articulated thought that you're going to say, it just hasn't translated.
That's right. It's just
speech yet.
Yeah. So the eish mayim ruch ruchni from the chetzoin yitzav alev, it's going to become or be expressed in the eish mayim ruach gashmi, the actual speech. Yeah, it's the final before speaking. B'shoshim medaber. That's why he stresses last line of the previous. While he's speaking, k'far yorda machshava mayamayach lechetzoin yitzav alev. So it's right there. And then it's going to come out to the final tzimtzum to be expressed. It's all in Chetzon Yesalev now. But we're going from there to the Gashmidik speech. So this is supposed to help us understand the Kodesh, Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Okay, we're running late, so we'll go straight to davening.